Welcome to Public House, intimate conversations with people making a difference in the Hudson Valley. And now, from Paula's Public House in Poughkeepsie, New York, here's Paula Young.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Paula's Public House, but today we are at Paula's Cafe, and it's Paula's Public House goes to the airport. Welcome. Anyhow, I wanted to introduce my guest, which is my first time guest here on this show. This is our district attorney, Bill Grady. Nice to see you, Bill Grady.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Paula.
Nice to see you. So, you have been district attorney in Dutchess County for a couple of years, right?
Oh, a few. 36 to be
36
exact.
36 years.
Yes.
So that's a body of work for certain.
Right.
Right, and I mean, you probably have grown with the county, but before you were district attorney here, I want to know who you are. Where did you come from? Where were you born?
Born and raised in Beacon, lifelong resident of Dutchess County. And
Okay.
graduated from the Beacon Public Schools and went to Norwich University, graduated from New York Law School. And before I started working in law, I went into the Army to fulfill my 2-year commitment, 1 year of which I spent in Vietnam. And I returned from Vietnam as a captain. I was awarded the Bronze Star Medal over there, which I'm very proud of. Then when I returned to the United States, it just so happened there was an opening in the DA's office, and having had worked in the
DA's office in New York City?
No, in Dutchess County.
Dutchess County DA.
And having worked as a probation officer while in law school, I had a good insight into what I wanted to do. So I wanted to help victims of crime and keep our communities safe, and the best way to do that was to work in the prosecutor's office. So Al Rosenblatt, who was a DA at the time, hired me. He hired me as the first full-time assistant DA. And what was unique about that was that at that time there were only 7 part-time assistant DAs in the office. Eventually I said I became full-time, but there were no women in the office at that time. And since I became DA in 1984, the office, of course, has not only grown to now where we have 30 assistant DAs, but 19 of whom are women.
Wow, that's good.
One of whom is my chief assistant DA, another is a bureau chief, and other hold very important positions in the office. So we've made quite a transition over that period of time.
Well, times have definitely changed. Now, in 36 years, tell me about the quality of crime, Do we see white-collar crime has risen? Do we see violent crime has risen? What do you see as the biggest change?
The criminal justice process ebbs and flows, so to speak, depending upon what's current at the time in terms of the types of crime being committed. For example, violent crime unfortunately rears its head from time to time, especially in the city of Poughkeepsie. We have gangs or had gangs located up there.
Does violent crime hold hands with drugs?
Oh yes, of course.
So as drugs have proliferated?
Well, a lot of the drug dealers are in fact gang members, and that's how they exist and make money. But we concentrated on gangs and violent crime in the city of Poughkeepsie over the last several years. I applied for a several $100,000 grant from New York State Bureau of Justice and was given that money to subsidize the position of a prosecutor as well as overtime for police officers from the city of Poughkeepsie, the probation department, sheriff's department. And I'm happy to say through increased efforts over the last 10 years, violent crime and gun-related crime in the city of Poughkeepsie has gone down dramatically. It's been cut by 50% in the last 10 years. So it's a tremendous effort, a joint effort. It's a partnership among all the agencies to make this happen.
So you work with every police department, and there are how many different municipal police departments in Dutchess County?
We have over a dozen.
Over a dozen.
And we interact with everyone. Everyone provides us with cases involving arrests that they have made, and the 30 assistant DAs in my office evaluate these cases and go to the 20 different towns, 8 villages, and 2 cities in the county to administer justice. And of course, our overall objective is not only to hold the offender accountable, keep our communities safe, but at the same time address the underlying causes of crime.
Well, I know that's key.
That's leading
because
into
if
what
we
you're
can
talking
stop
about.
people from becoming criminals when they're younger,
Right.
then we're not going to have the issues as they become older. Now, I just wanted to
Right.
talk to you about something that's happening. I know that at the beginning of the year, we're going to have some changes to a
Correct.
certain, and please
Correct.
speak to this because I don't think people are aware.
Well-
As I understand it, if you have not committed a violent crime, you will not go to jail. You'll be given a desk appearance ticket. Is that correct?
Well, I think we're getting a little bit too far ahead of ourselves. I think to put the whole issue in perspective, if you don't mind, I can talk about the type of crime that's committed, underlying reasons for committing that type of crime, and what we've done about it, and how the new laws will impact what we've done
Explain
about
it to me.
Okay. Right from the very beginning, about 20 years ago, we addressed the drug problem in this county by creating one of the first in the state drug courts to address misdemeanor drug offenders.
I did read about that, yes.
And that has gone on for many years until we created the diversion court, which handles the nonviolent felony offenders. And just recently, within the last year and a half, I partnered with the Department of Mental Hygiene, Project More, and the Probation Department to create an in-house jail drug rehabilitation program. And the reason we did that was because, as you probably know, every time an offender is remanded to jail because they can't make bail, the nonviolent offenders are interviewed by the probation department to determine if they present a real risk of not appearing back in court, as the judge would tell them to do,
Exactly.
Or they're worth the risk to be released under their supervision and control.
Okay.
And we participate in that program. So that at any given time in that program, we have between 500 and 600 offenders who are being supervised during the pendency of their case, who would ordinarily be in jail because they could not make bail. And that was the only reason they couldn't make bail.
Okay.
But there are any number of nonviolent offenders who remain in jail because they're a very high risk to not return to court.
Correct.
And
But
those,
they're basically just going to skip.
well, that's the translation.
Yes.
But the overwhelming problem, of course, is they're either drug or alcohol dependent or have mental health issues or both.
Right.
So we said, this is not acceptable because although they're in jail because they can't make bail, eventually they will get out. And these people not only are going to create multiple problems potentially for the community, but also for themselves. Because they're drug dependent, unless something is done about their dependency issues, when they are released, if nothing is done, they'll go out and potentially reoffend, but more importantly, or just as importantly, become high and maybe even die from an overdose.
Right.
And that is a legitimate conclusion to draw because in 2018 alone, we had over 93 deaths in this county as a result of overdose, basically because of heroin and fentanyl or a mix. And it's pervasive in this county. It's not only the city of Poughkeepsie,
And it's not just
all
this
over.
county. It's not just this
It's
county.
all over.
It's just coming
all over the state, all over
yes.
the country.
And it's not just youth. It seems
Exactly,
to be across
exactly.
generations.
So, to address that, we created the rehabilitation program. It's very intensive, 5 days a week, all day, Monday through Friday, and it lasts for 2 months. And it includes medically assisted treatment, if necessary, as well as a program involving what's called moral recognition therapy, which uses cognitive approach to addressing the criminogenic problems with the offender.
So what you're saying is that it's not just saying, okay, you were bad here, I'm slapping you, you're going to jail, but we're saying you were bad, but there's reasons for it.
Right.
Could
We'll
it be
help
your
you.
drug addiction? Could it be your childhood? Could it be? We're going to help you
We're gonna help
so
you.
that not only will you stop committing crime, but you'll stop wanting to commit
Right.
crime.
But-
the reasons
but-
are going to be taken away.
Realistically, you might say, well, why would an offender want to get involved in a program like that? Because they certainly didn't volunteer to get involved in anything before they were arrested for committing the crime that they committed to support their habit.
I can answer that. Nobody wants to grow up to be a bad guy. I don't
Well-
really think anybody wants to grow up to be a bad guy.
Well, I'm going to answer that as well. And the reason is because I, as the DA, will say to them, as an inducement for them to get involved in the program,
Right.
look, given your record, and given what would happen if convicted after trial,
Right.
you would probably serve maybe 5-6 months in jail.
Right.
We're talking about mostly misdemeanor offenders.
Right.
But I'm saying if you complete this 2-month program and satisfactorily,
Right.
and you agree to accept the conditions of probation and be on a supervised program after release, I will cut your time basically by a third or a half so that you will basically complete the program and then be released from jail. So that's the incentive that's used to try to induce these folks to get involved, to accept help, and live in the community without causing a problem.
We can't have so many people in jails.
Beg
First of all,
pardon?
we can't have so many people in jails. First of all, it
Right.
costs us a fortune.
Right.
And it doesn't benefit our society.
There are people, of course,
that have
have
be.
to go to jail.
But I'm talking about in general. From what you're
True.
saying is you're basically trying to get people, find them a path towards freedom and a path towards being a better person.
toward addressing their problem. Because
Yes, of course.
when you listen to the speeches made at the drug court graduation ceremonies, it brings tears to your eyes because they explain the terrible ordeal that they went through to get to the point where they're sober and now in control of their addiction
Addiction
problem.
is a horrible thing.
So what we're leading up to, of course, is what happens now after the first of the year. After the first of the year, the law has changed. And there's nothing we can do about that now. So that all these misdemeanor offenders that we've just talked about,
Right.
who are now in these programs, and
Right.
et cetera, and we'll complete them, all of those offenders, as soon as they're arrested, if after January 1, by law will be released without any supervision and control by simply being given an appearance ticket
Right.
to appear in court up to 20 days later.
It doesn't seem like
Now,
that's going to benefit anybody.
well, it doesn't remove the issue that we've been confronting. The challenge is, how do we reanalyze what can be done to address this issue without doing it through the jail-based program that we have now. So what I did, again, I gathered and had a meeting with the Department of Mental Hygiene, Lexington House folks, the Mid-Hudson Regional Hospital, Turning Point, a number of different service providers, the Stabilization Center run by the county, and all these folks have committed themselves to doing something to intervene at the time of arrest. So what I've done is created a program along with Bill Eckert from the Department of Hygiene. It's going to be called the Pre-Arraignment Diversion Program, and it will take place after these offenders are arrested, but before they're arraigned, so that they will be intervened with.
Right.
And
To give them an opportunity.
Well, through mentoring.
Right.
And a good example would be, for example, the veterans folks. Now, unfortunately, some veterans do have drug problems because of their issues that they became involved with overseas. And they have to be addressed. We're working with the Department of Veterans Affairs so that we'll have a hotline number, so that if, unfortunately, a person in that category is arrested, the hotline will be called. A mentor will be on the phone immediately conversing with the person who's just been arrested.
This is a good thing. I have to cut you short because
Yes.
this is a big subject.
Yes.
We don't have all day, and unfortunately, but we can have you back. What I do want to say is I appreciate that you've been doing this job for a long time and been doing it well. I appreciate the innovations that you have brought. And I hope that you can continue doing that, and that the people of Dutchess County will continue to benefit from a very healthy and robust criminal justice system.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill
I
Grady.
appreciate you
Thank you very much.
asking me to join you today.
I appreciate it, because I don't think people realize how big your job is, what you do, or the scope of it. Folks, fascinating. It seems so easy on the outside. We make past judgments about people, but nothing's easy, and certainly this job isn't. So thank you for listening today, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate that. It
Thanks,
was very
Paula.
interesting.
Hi, I'm Paula Young, and I'm the proprietor here of Paula's Public House. Do join me for good food, good cheer, and good fellowship. We are here, we have fun, and we'd love to have you be a part of it. Come on down.